Let's start with context. Solana Accelerate is the Solana Foundation's flagship developer and ecosystem conference. In 2026 it ran in two phases. The first was Accelerate APAC in Hong Kong in February, co-located with Consensus Hong Kong. Over 3,000 builders, executives, and policymakers attended. More than 20 regulators from across Asia were present. The theme was tokenization and payments, and the announcements from that event set the tone for everything coming to Miami. The second phase is Accelerate USA on May 5 at the Miami Beach Convention Center, co-located with Consensus 2026 but run entirely by Solana. Limited capacity. Anatoly Yakovenko, Solana's co-founder, is headlining. There's also a third event the following day, Solana Accelerate AI, an invite-only gathering focused entirely on AI applications on Solana. The framing Solana is pushing for this entire year is what they call Internet Capital Markets, the idea that Solana should be the 24/7, global settlement layer for every financial market that currently runs on traditional infrastructure. Every announcement at Accelerate USA has been designed around that thesis. The most technically significant thing happening at, or leading into, Accelerate Miami is the Alpenglow consensus upgrade. This is SIMD 0326, and it's the most consequential protocol change in Solana's history. Right now, Solana uses TowerBFT for consensus. Alpenglow replaces that entirely with two new components, voter and rotor. The result, median transaction finality drops from roughly 400 milliseconds to roughly 150 milliseconds. In the fast path, when over 80% of stake is online, it can reach 100 milliseconds. That means Solana would finalize transactions faster than a human blink. More than 98% of validators have backed this upgrade. The mainnet deployment is targeted for mid-2026. Why does this matter beyond the benchmark? Sub-150 ms finality changes what you can build. Real-time trading. Autonomous AI agents executing on-chain. Payments that confirm before a user looks away. It also brings Solana meaningfully closer to the sub-100 ms latency of traditional financial systems, which is the actual bar for institutional adoption, not fast for crypto, but genuinely competitive with Nasdaq. The central narrative at Accelerate Miami is what Solana calls Internet Capital Markets, or ICM. The argument is straightforward: every financial market in the world, stocks, bonds, commodities, foreign exchange, currently operates on infrastructure built in the 1970s and 1980s. Settlement takes 2 days. Trading stops on weekends. Global participants are locked out by geography, broker relationships, and minimum account sizes. Solana's pitch is that all of it should run on-chain, 24/7, with instant settlement and global access. At Accelerate Hong Kong, this wasn't just talk. Drift Protocol announced equity perpetuals, futures contracts on tokenized US stocks like SPY and Nvidia. You'll be able to trade exposure to the S&P 500 at 2 in the morning on a Sunday on a DX with no broker. Kamino launched an off-chain collateral pilot with Anchorage Digital, meaning real-world assets held off-chain can now be used as collateral for DeFi positions. This is the bridge between traditional finance and on-chain finance that's been talked about for years but never built. The Halborn team released the Solana Security Token Standard, built on top of SPL Token 2022, with KYC and AML compliance and corporate action support built in from day one. For the first time, you can issue a compliant security token on Solana in the same way you'd issue one through a traditional registrar. The ICM thesis is, once the token standard exists, once the Oracle infrastructure exists, once the finality is fast enough, the migration of traditional markets to Solana becomes a matter of regulatory timeline, not technical feasibility. One of the most important pre-event announcements came on March 31st, Encrypt is bringing fully homomorphic encryption to Solana. FHE allows computation on encrypted data, meaning you can execute a trade, verify collateral, or run a risk model without ever decrypting the underlying data. Encrypt's devnet is targeting early Q2 2026, with mainnet later in the year. This came right after the Solana Foundation published its privacy framework, a detailed document called Privacy on Solana, a full-spectrum approach for the modern enterprise. The framework defines 4 privacy modes: pseudonymity, confidentiality, anonymity, and fully private. Critically, it introduces the concept of auditor keys, a way for regulators or compliance teams to decrypt specific transactions without making those transactions publicly visible on-chain. This is the mechanism that makes institutional participation viable. Right now, any hedge fund or bank that trades on a public blockchain exposes their entire strategy to frontrunners and competitors. With FHE and auditor keys, you get public liquidity with private execution, the same information asymmetry that institutions currently have in traditional dark pools, but on a public settlement layer. Titan Exchange already debuted private swaps with compliance rails at Accelerate Hong Kong. The infrastructure is being built in layers, and Accelerate Miami is where it converges. 6 projects are worth tracking at this event. First, Alpenglow. The technical teams from ANZA will be presenting the full roadmap at Accelerate, and the mainnet timeline will likely be the most watched announcement of the day. Second, Encrypt and the FHE devnet. The launch timing and developer documentation will determine how quickly the ecosystem can start building on top of it. Third, Drift Protocol's equity perpetuals. There's significant irony in the fact that Drift, the protocol that lost $285 million to a hack 4 days ago, is also one of the most technically ambitious teams building on Solana. Watch for whether they announce a restart timeline at Accelerate alongside the equity perps launch. Fourth, Kamino's off-chain collateral expansion. The Anchorage pilot was a proof of concept. At Accelerate, expect them to announce the next institutional partner and a clearer timeline for general availability. Fifth, MCPay, the open payment infrastructure protocol that won the Cypherpunk hackathon. It combines the Model Context Protocol with X402 payment rails, enabling AI agents to pay each other and access services autonomously on Solana. This is the infrastructure layer for the AI economy on-chain. Sixth, Unruggable, the Solana-optimized hardware wallet that won the hackathon's grand prize. It's built specifically for Solana's account model, not a generic hardware wallet with a Solana plugin. Institutional-grade self-custody is a prerequisite for the ICM thesis, and this is the consumer product that could make it real. A few things I'm tracking as specific signals on May 5th and in the weeks that follow. For builders, watch the Alpenglow devnet announcement carefully, specifically whether they give a hard date for mainnet or keep it as mid-2026. The Encrypt FHE devnet documentation will tell you whether this is truly developer-ready or still research stage. The multiple concurrent proposals upgrade, which shifts away from single-leader block production, is another major change that changes MEV strategy significantly. And the Solana privacy framework's adoption by actual protocols will be the real test of whether institutions show up. For investors, the SOL ETF situation in Asia is worth tracking. China AMC and FUTU both signaled SOL ETF expansion at Accelerate Hong Kong. Post-hack drift recovery is a signal for how the ecosystem handles institutional confidence. A credible compensation plan and transparent security audit would accelerate institutional trust. Watch real-world asset TVL on Solana. The Kamino off-chain collateral pilot is the leading indicator of whether TradFi is actually migrating. And watch equity perps volume at Drift and others. If 24/7 on-chain stock trading starts generating real volume, that changes the valuation case for Solana's fee revenue significantly. The Internet capital markets thesis is ambitious. Accelerate Miami is where we find out how much of it is ready to ship.